Hey, what's up, YouTube? Terrencem here again. I know how much you guys love your Slay the Spire tier list. So today we're gonna do one for boss relics, just kinda talk about the general power level of the boss relic situations where they're good, situation where they might not be as good, and like why, and just my general thoughts on them. So hope you enjoy it. Let's just go through this alphabetically. Start with the Astrolabe. Astrolabe is something that's definitely on the higher side of things to have if you miss like your energy relics, or if your deck has so much energy generation that you don't really need an energy relic. It's definitely on the upper end of the things that you can get otherwise. You get rid of all your base cards, really, like your strikes, because sometimes you even like want defense, so it can be rather than something like a Pandora's box when seen together, since you're like just getting rid of those specific strikes. A situation where you have like a corruption or you have like some dexterity or something on the silent. I think we're gonna start this in the B tier for now. I mean, a lot of times you do really want to see your energy, but if you do have energy generation, it's one of the better like things if you have energy generation or if you do not need energy, or if you do not see an energy relic and you just don't really have the choice at all. Then there's Burning Blood, which heals you for 12 at the end of each combat instead of 6. And yeah, it's really not good. Healing for an extra 6 is really not that much power, like things like max HP and stuff like that. And then it doesn't really, it's not like adding to your power level, it's just letting you like tank a little bit more. And if you're really at that point where the like extra 6 at the end of a fight makes that big of a difference, then like on top of the 6 you already have normally, then you're probably in a really, really bad spot. It just doesn't really add any extra power. Uh, Next we have a Black Star. You get an extra relic every time you defeat an elite. Black Star does not give you immediate power. It gives you power after you fight the fights where you want that immediate power in. So it's a very situational relic for it to actually be good for you. You're like weaker going into the elites, not having that like extra energy or whatever. And those are the fights you really want the power for. So we're gonna put this in the C tier. It's just not like proactive at all, and you can just end up being put behind, not able to do elites or anything. You're also not getting power in the hallway fights leading up to those elites either, and most of the time that you won't be swapping into this, you'll be getting it at like the end of Act 1, preferably if your deck can even do that. You're going to like Act 2 hallway fights, and then yeah, no. Thank you. Luxar is not a super powerful, a very conditional relic, but similar spot to Colin Bell, which we'll get to in a bit. And then there's Busted Crown, where you get two less cards seen in each of your card awards. This is terrible, like actively negative for your run for the most part. Like the energy is not worth, like you miss so many opportunities for scaling when you have Busted Crown. It can be very hard to figure out your like block situation for Act 4. You can kind of scrape things together. I mean, sometimes you're even just like similar to Black Star, kind of, but you like don't get the cards. If you like swap into it, you don't get the cards to be able to like defeat the first elite, or you get it at the end of Act 1 and you don't get the scaling to be able to like beat the Act 2 boss. It's really one of the absolute worst things that you can receive, for sure. And there's Colin Bell, which I think is in a very similar spot to Astrolabe. Almost don't think about the curse from it at all, I mean, you have to consider it a little bit, but you get 3 relics immediately. A lot less situational than like a Black Star would be. Or Black Star is like, even if you get it at the end of Act 2 where you already like could have an energy relic, then you're like getting 2 to 3 relics from it. But I mean, you're getting like 3 to 4, but you're getting like 2 to 3 in Act 3. And it's just a matter of like, are you at a point where you can like wait for that and not get the relic, or do you need these relics right away? Things like that. So I think it's in a very similar spot to Astrolabe, where it's like a lot of times you'll like want the energy relic instead of it, but pretty good. And it's like if you're in not so great of a position, it's very situational. Like which one is actually better. But I think Bell might even be a little bit better. I'm not sure. But we can maybe come back to that at a later point. It's not too important. It really can go either way depending on where your deck is at the moment. Coffee Dripper. Coffee Dripper is S tier. When it comes to Energy Relic, it's just like what gives you like the least downside. And for this tier list, it's like what gives you the least amount of downside on average. And most runs, you don't want to be resting at all. Like, I've definitely had a few runs where you just get very, very unlucky and the coffee dripper ends up being a thing. Notably, before this world record streak that we had recently, I had like 2 wins before it, and then this run with like reprogram and like 2 hyper beams, a sunder and a seek plus, and tons of good stuff, and like a 19 card deck. And I go into the masked bandits fight, and I don't see hyper beam or seek or sunder in my first 10 cards. So like 4 of those are in the bottom 9 cards of my deck. I end up taking a ridiculous amount of damage in a fight that could have been like very, very easily won, and just I took like 50 damage in like 4 floors or something. It was very, very, very stupid. But that's not like Coffee Dripper's fault. It's like we didn't lose that run because Coffee Dripper is a bad relic. We lost that run because we got ridiculously unlucky and like the events that I rolled and the draw and in those events. But whatever, not gonna get too salty about that. Coffee Drip is amazing. You hardly ever want to be resting anyway. So very, very good. Then there's Curse Key. Curse Key is definitely a way bigger downside than Coffee Dripper is. Although it's dealable, you could try and plan for like having a shop after your chest when you do eventually have to open a chest to get your blue key, or you could have a blue key already. If you aren't aware, there are 3 different chest sizes with like small, medium, and large chests, and the like rarity of the relics within them gets better. So you can even like avoid opening the small chest. It's pretty good. Very easy to like work around the downside of the curse key compared to some of the other boss relic downsides. One that you can't really work around at all, there's Ectoplasm. Yeah. Not having money is very, very, very bad for your rounds. You can't buy relics, can't do card moves and stuff. And I mean, oh, I think I was talking about like how you like can't see this at Act 1 when I was talking about this crown. I don't know, but that's Ectoplasm. You can only see this from swap or at the end of Act 1. I don't know why I was saying that about crown earlier. But yeah. Ectoplasm is also going to be in this F tier, but probably better than this. Like sometimes you just need the energy and like money. It's a lot better to see three card rewards than to not have money. Like you sometimes have to like go to shops and buy cards with crown, which it'd be a lot less expensive to just like have the card rewards. Unless you just high roll the card rewards. That can happen too. Empty cage. But yeah, let me not move too fast through ectoplasm. Sometimes you just need the thing, especially on characters like Defect, where shop relics are so important with runic capacitor and orange pellets. Really, really, really don't want to see an ectoplasm at all. Yeah, we can move on now to empty cage. You remove two cards. That's it. Worse than Astrolabe, unless you have like a very um like streamlined deck that is trying to like see cards over and over again or like do something very specific or see something extremely fast and you're like in a decent position already. Yeah, it's like empty cages, you have to be in a decent position already, and Astrolabe is like kind of help you out of a bad position more than empty cage would. So I'm gonna also put it's like very similar comparisons with these, right? Where it's like Astrolabe and Colin Bell can get you out of or like give you strength and like help get you out of a bad situation. Whereas like the Black Star and the empty cage like are support for being in a better situation. Frozen Core, where you will channel a Frost Orb at the end of each turn. Frozen Core is actually really, really bad. Most of the time, you have enough orb generation compared to the orb slots that you have. If you're in a situation where that's not the case, maybe you have like a runic capacitor or like an inserter. But even just inserter alone isn't enough. Runic capacitor is probably like the main situation where you'd want this, where you like start off with the six orbs and you probably like get two frost orbs out of it, maybe three before it's like a problem. But even that sounds not good, right? Like you're using a boss relic spot to like generate two frost orbs or something like that. Works well with dual cast and things like that too, but it's really, really not that good. I actually had this in C before when I looked at this, but the more I talk about it, it feels like an F. Like it can probably be the top of F, but this is just not something that feels good ever. Like you generate more than enough orbs usually when playing defect that you don't really need it. I've had runs where it's okay, but it's like almost never something that you're like, man, I really hope I get a frozen core and my boss relic screen. Yeah, not good. It's like something you take if like everything else is negative for you. Then there's Fusion Hammer. Um, I think it can be within the like B range. It's an either A or B. We're gonna put it behind Frisky for now, but you get an energy and you can no longer upgrade at rest sites. There are some things to counteract that, where you can either choke with Peace Pipe or you have Giria or Shovel. And in those situations, it can be really, really good. Or you have like Dreamcatcher is a bit of a help, not as good as the others, of course. And there's the option of having like Apotheosis. You can also get it at the end of Act 2 where you're committing at least one fire um to recalling for the key to get to Act 4 anyway. So yeah, it's definitely a good energy relic. There are some downsides though. There's like really powerful upgrades like Wraith form, where if you have a Wraith form that's not upgraded yet, it can feel pretty bad to not be able to upgrade that. It can feel bad to not upgrade your like defragments and loops as defect. More the loop than the defragment, but there can just be like some really, really important upgrades. And you might not have the things that help counteract Fusion Hammer, and it could feel a little bad. But if you do have those things, then it's definitely better than Curse Key. But without, it's a bit worse. Then there is, what is this? It's like pure and holy water. This is holy water. Get 3 miracles, 0 cost skills that retain, and just give you an energy. The current meta for Watcher is to just boss up every time. You don't see this as much anymore, but I actually like the Relic quite a bit. I mean, it's definitely had fun runs with like Branch or like the upgraded card at the end of every turn. You like lesson learned your whole deck, and then they're being upgraded. Or like Blessing of the Forge pots and stuff like that. It can be pretty cool. But I mean, Watcher ends fights pretty quickly. There's also like Scroll, where you can like get the like all the energy front loaded and draw and do cool stuff. Powerful Watcher one shot stuff. But yeah, Watcher ends fights fast enough that it shouldn't really be too much of a problem. I think this is also within like the AB power level type of range. We'll put it at the top of B for now because if you do happen to end up in a longer fight, it can not be so great. But I don't know. I might actually just move this to A at the end. I'm not I'm not completely sure at the moment. We can come back to that later. Then there's Flying Kite. You gain an energy the first time you discard a card each turn. I hate Flying Kite. Flying Kite's not even exactly an energy relic, I wouldn't say. Like without tools of the trade or just a very, very dedicated discard deck. Like it's not giving you without tools of the trade, it kind of just straight up and there's like prepared and like calculate gamble and things like that. But like if you like count like acrobatics or something, it's like reducing the cost of your first like discard card played by 1. It's not like energy that you can freely use on things. It's like cool, you have it with acrobatics, but sometimes when you're on 4 energy, you don't really want to play the acrobatics anyway. So it's like you still kind of are on the energy, you just have like a little bit more options having played the acrobatics. Yeah, I really, really dislike Flying Kite without tools of the trade. And I'm not like super into the discard decks in general, although Tough Bandage is very, very good. Yeah, not a great relic. Definitely in this maybe leaning towards that range, but it's not like negative, and it's like not like so it's not like to the further core level either. Let's move on to Inserter. Every 2 turns, you will gain an orb slot, and you can like set it up to be on like where how you can set up like Happy Flower and things. You can set it up to be on the first turn of a combat. Inserter is really, really good. It is not immediately impactful though, but orb slots are so scarce on defect that it's really, really good to see it, and I'll like sometimes like pick it over a decent energy relic if I haven't seen any orb slots at all. Because you can like it's easier to like solve the problem of like energy with like turbo and like aggregate and things like that, or double energy, whatever, but solving the problem of like not seeing orb slots, and sometimes even if you do see orb slots, it's like the one isn't enough. That's not so easy to solve. There's only so many sources to get orb slots from, so I think Interior is really, really, really good. Marker Pain. you gain an energy, but you shuffle 2 wounds in your deck at the beginning of combat. Mark of Pain is something that I rated really lowly, I'd say like a year ago, but have started to rate it a bit higher, mostly probably influenced by Life Coach. But it's not like if you have like a more expensive deck, or if you find evolves, then it's not that bad at all. There's still the downside of like you can draw the wounds before you draw your evolve, but like things like second wind, maybe some battle trances, maybe just like having some 2 energy costs, things that Ironclad kind of wants to do anyway. It's not that hard of a downside to counteract. So I think this is also within the AB range. Gonna put it in the A for now. Moving on, we got a nuclear battery. You get a steady to combat with a plasma orb, which gives you energy at the start of each turn. This is also in the AB range, which all the energy relics, but not too bad of a downside. We'll go. It's where they belong. It's hmm, it's not exactly clear because Defect will want to go longer in fights. Like Defect isn't like the fastest of classes, but a lot of what Defect wants to do as far as setting up is front loaded. There are also synergies from cards like Pile Driver. So it's not super clear which side it goes on. It really just depends. Like everything in the Spire. Which is why things like this aren't super useful all the time. But I'll put it at the top of B for now. It is it is definitely good. And can definitely be better than like the downsides here. It just really depends on how much you'll like need that energy later on in the fight. If you just need it to like set your stuff up, set up your like powers and stuff, then cool, you're fine. And like there's like compile driver benefits that can help you speed up there, and there's also like evoking it benefits where you can speed up there as well. Also depends on how many orb slots you have. If you have like Arena Capacitor, then it's sticking around for a longer time. And Soda can help a little bit as well. It's kind of slow. You probably generate more than like 4 or 5 before too long. Or if you just have some like capacitors. But yeah, it's very easily like in this A-B range. But not super easy to pinpoint where it should or could be here. Then there's Pandora's box. You transform all your strikes into defense. Really, really good. It's so powerful to just get rid of all of those base cards, and then the like opportunity cost of like removing cards, the value of that gets a lot lower after having gotten rid of all those base cards, so it like saves you some money there. There's also the extremely powerful combo that should be illegal, but ceramic fish where you get a ton of money. Ceramic fish, very powerful relic, would be S tier here. But joking, by the way. Pandora's box, I think is within this range. I mean, I hmm, I definitely like Astro more than I like Pandora's because usually defends aren't too bad. Um, do I like it more than Bell? I mean, it depends, but I do like Bell a lot. I think I'm okay with this placement. I'm not like super into transforms and like the randomness of it. I guess it depends like whether you have like something like going for you or not, or you're like looking for something to be powerful. But even then, if you're like still looking, the and it depends on like how many removes you have already too. In a decent amount of time, you'll have started removing already. So yeah, I do like this. Philosopher Stone. This can be a little bit class dependent. Like on Silent, it's amazing, very easy access to Piercing Whale to help. The main downside of it is like the heart, right? Then Ironclad has access to disarm, a lot less. You don't see it as often as you see Piercing Whale, of course, but it is something that's there. Also, if you have like an incense burner, it could help a lot, like as far as like the 50/50, and if you can like cleanse the or not become vulnerable, that also can be a very big factor. But I think like one of the worst cases for it is Defect, who kind of doesn't have the easiest time in the first 2 to 3 turns as far as like blocking the damage from the heart, as well as like by the time of like the second round of attacks, you're like at that point where you're like just about to finish your scaling for the fight. So it really comes at not a super great time for Defect, who also doesn't have like other things to help in that. Like there's no like minus strength things for him. But there can be like apparitions and stuff like that which can help it. And then Watcher is kind of just Watcher. And like there's like Talk to the Hand and things like that. Which make and like access to weak with like Wave of the Hand and things like that, which can make it not as bad. But throughout like all the rest of the game, besides the heart, if you can figure something out for then, it's like outside of like getting a birds with a bad deck for that, the 3 birds can be very scary with Philostone. They can get up to 18 more damage, which is more than the heart gets. But yeah, especially on Ascension, on the higher Ascensions where it takes 4 hits to knock them down instead of 3. Can be very, very scary. But once you're past that, it's really not a downside. I mean, you notice it because it's like numbers being 1 higher feels like very noticeable with so many hours in the game. It's like, why is this attacking me for so much? But it's just attacking you for like 1 to 3 more, which is definitely worth having that extra energy without the other downsides. So it's definitely noticeable, but it's a very fine downside to have throughout like all the game outside of like birds and the heart for the most part. Then there's I don't know whatever the upgrade to Ring of the Snake is. I don't know its name, but you draw 1 extra card a turn. So I mean, it's okay, but it's never something you're like. It's almost never something you're really like looking for. I feel like it's in like this range of things. I'm not even sure I like it more than Ecto or these are kind of similar, but this like can actually do things for you, whereas Frozen Core can do things for you, but it's not super likely. There can be times where you just like want that 1 extra draw. But you're also missing out on your starter relic, your bag of prep. You draw 1 less card on turn 1. You draw 1 more card on turn 2. They'll like be like break even in that sense by turn 2, but you're also giving up like other boss relic options. Right? And Silent can have decent access to draw with like backflip, acrobatics, other things probably. And yeah, it's just not super powerful. That's okay. Runic Cube. Runic Cube's also something I rated a lot lower. And I'd say that my opinion of it's gone up more from Life Coach, but I still kind of feel that it's in like the C range for general power level. It's like you can use it with like brutality and like the heat of death and like chemokinesis or whatever. But I don't think that it's super important. It can be really nice if you have like a corruption that you're playing around and you have a brutality, then like that one extra draw can be pretty big, and you can like make your brutality innate, and then you're getting that one extra draw into something like Spire Shield and Spear, or just other fights where you have to be good on turn two. It can be strong in those options and definitely better than something with a downside, but it definitely needs other things to be supporting it. It's not doing too much on its own. And it's like and if it's not doing, if you don't have the like very good support for it, or you're not like at the heart where you're getting that like draw for free, it's like you have less energy since you have this most likely. So you're not really able to do that much with the draw. So I think it's definitely within the C range. Runic Dome. Runic Dome is an A for me. I mean, like, I think a decent amount of time, it doesn't matter too much. There can be situations against like Gremlin Leader where it's very, very nice to know which turns you need to be blocking, especially when Gremlin Leader doesn't attack a very big majority of the time, like 30% or something like that. It's like either 30 or 50%. Not very likely to attack you at all. Sometimes cannot attack you for full fights, but in those fights, it can be really, really scary. Or not knowing whether Chosen's vulning you or weakening you. And it can make you like waste energy and then not be able to kill something on a turn you would have been able to, which will cost you again. But I think a decent amount of time there's like it could be like runs where you're like blocking anyway with like a barricade, or you're like setting up your like frost orbs for defect. That's something you're just like planning on doing anyway, or you have say Wraith form on silent and you just don't care what they're doing, and then there's fights where it doesn't matter as much and can be like a lot more just like straightforward in what they're doing. It's definitely valuable to see intense to some degree and can be really punishing if you don't, but I think that's I like prefer that downside to like being able to open less chests depending on where you see the curse key. Like if you see it going into Act 2, I would prefer like a Runic Doom instead. Or like not being able to upgrade if you don't have any other of the alternative things to do at your campfires. Runic Pyramid, you do not discard cards at the end of your turn. Extremely powerful, probably even better than an energy relic with little to no downside. The better you get at like optimizing fights, of course, and not taking needless damage, or like having just like higher quality decks and not drafting not so useful or less consistent cards. But yeah, Runic Pyramid, I think the like pretty clear debate is like whether like Runic Pyramid or Snecko is at the top. And I think Runic Pyramid just gives you that consistency with like there is the problem of you still have to draw your cards for the beginning. Like say your first two turns, you won't have as many options And you also don't super want to have draw because your cards don't go away at the end of the turn, so draw can be a little bit wasted. You want like passive draw like Ink Bottle and like Bag of Prep and things like that, but you're not always looking for draw unless you have energy and ways to dump your hand outside of that, or you're like going infinite with Pyramid, which is also a thing. But Pyramid's just like powerful and gives you control compared to something like Snecko, where it's like very, very powerful, but you don't always have the control. But we really can talk about both these at the same time. But it really just depends, like which one is your deck and what direction you're going in also matters. Like if you have like creative AI, then it kind of can like fill your hand and you don't get as many slots to draw cards through your deck and cannot be great with Pyramid. It also can be good sometimes with things like Amplify or, and yeah, mostly Amplify. With Echoform, you wouldn't care either way. Um, and then there's things like Dead Branch where you like are generating a bunch of random cards that you don't want to stick around. And then there's Snecko, which is also very powerful, especially if you have high cost cards. And there's the problem with Pyramid where your first two turns can be kind of bad because you don't have those extra draws. If you don't have things that you necessarily need to play at that like perfect time, you just need to play them and get to them in general. Snecko can be a lot better at doing those things for you. Like say with like a corruption that you want to like just get down faster, Snecko Eye could be a better thing for you than Pyramid, and you like see it faster and like draw more cards with that energy discount from the corruption. Then there's Sacred Bark. Sacred Bark is I'm not a fan of. It's like potions are pretty decent anyway. You're giving up something else for it. You kind of want to have like your potion belt or your white beast statue along with it. And sometimes even if you do have white beast statue, and you're in a situation where you're like relying on the bark for power, it's not that great because if you don't have like the belt with it as well, sometimes you're not able to like save those powerful potions and you're just like trying to like cycle through potions. And then at that point, as you like get to the later, more important fights, if you've been cycling through your potions, maybe you just like roll not so great potions at the end, so that can be a bit of a problem too. And really not a big fan of Park. I probably like it more than I like Kite though. I'm less of a fan of Kite, and it would be rude to have. Although like Park is like Park helps you from a bad situation, whereas Empty Cage does not do that as much. So maybe around here, and also Park does help you like in the same sense where it's like yeah. I mean, I'd rather have a Black Star than a Bark, but as far as like wanting to like get more power, but if I don't feel great, then, and I can't really go to elites anyway, then definitely would want a Bark. Then there's Slaver's Collar. Slaver's Collar is also in the C range. Not having that energy into hallway fights can be really, really bad. You can take a bunch of damage, especially usually you'll be like getting it in like the Act 2 range where it's like, yeah, I could really use some energy going into these very difficult Act 2 hallway fights. But it's really good as like your fifth energy where it's like you're in Act 3, you're usually outscaling out Act 3 for the most part when you get there, and then it's just that extra bit of energy for the like boss gauntlet at A20 and the heart and shield and spear. And the elites are like mostly the dangerous part. There's like transient and charm horde and stuff like that as well, but you should kind of be able to be doing decently against those if your run's getting to Act 3. So maybe not too bad. It does kind of hurt if you like have those like utility relics like Pyramid and Snecko or whatever else, Pandora's Bell, etc. And you need like the energy to support them, and then you like are going to Act 3 on like 3 base energy into Hollow Fights, and that can be a bit of a problem. But yeah, I mean, it's just energy if you really, really need it, and nothing else is helpful. But it is to the point where if the choice is between that and something else and you need the power immediately, then things like Astrolabe, Pandora's, and First Blow, you'd rather see by quite a bit, and Inserta as well, things like that. But these where it's like not so clear that it's like an immediate benefit, the color can be better. Like color actually helps you in the elites, whereas Black Star doesn't help you till after the elite. And there is Sozu, which is really, really bad. Probably a bit better than Acto. You can counteract this a little bit, but you counteract it by being very, very strong and no longer needing to use potions. That is like the counteraction to Sozu. Yeah. I mean, potions are just so key in all parts of the run. If you like ever swap into Sozu, most of your ability to farm elites in Act 1 is based off of hitting potions, and your pathing is meant to like you like sometimes you're like taking the fourth fight, the hard pull fight, to increase your chances of getting a potion, and times when you don't receive a potion, you're taking a ton of damage. Like it's the difference between like taking that big hit against Knob or killing that sentry earlier and not having daze and taking more damage and all that stuff. Then there's Act 2, which even if you do have like an electrodynamics or something, you're going into slavers without a potion, it's really, really not good. So yeah, Sozu and not having potions feels really, really bad. I don't have the Terra 80 empty potion slot emote for nothing. It's just a really bad feeling to not have potions. So the only time you really want Sozu is if you have potions already and don't really see yourself needing them. And then there's fights like Shield and Spear where your draw on turn 2 matters a lot, and having a Swift potion or a Gambler's potion is a really big deal. So if you took Sozu, you have to be in a position to like hold that until the end, and at higher ascensions you only have 2 potion slots, so yeah. Not having potions feels extremely bad. Only take this if you're so desperately need energy and your deck doesn't care too much about potions, maybe. Like you just need energy and your deck can do something extremely powerful. Or your deck is just extremely powerful in general and just never needs to use potions again. From the ones you have, you just don't need to use them. And there's Tiny House, which is a benefit, not negative, but it's a really, really, really minor benefit. Just some gold, max HP, a card award screen, and um an upgrade. It's very, very negligible. Velvet Joker. I think this is one of the like lesser downsides for sure. Probably in like this range, either before or behind Runic Dome. Obviously, there's some situations where it's not even something you can kind of think about, like with Infinite, like it ruins your possibility for Infinite. It ruins the possibility of doing like aggregate, like a bunch of draw things on defect. There's like Watcher in general. Kind of hates Velvet Choker. Less flurry of blows and like spamming attacks for talk to the hand, and things like that. There's silent with shivs, of course, but if you're playing poison, then Joker's amazing. Um, there can be like corruption, dark embrace things, but I've like I remember a run where I like had corruption, dark embrace, and a bunch of things, and picked Joker, and then chat was like, "Oh my God, you picked Joker!" Blah blah blah. And then at the end of the run, they were like, "Wait, that was still just really really powerful." And then there's things with like defect in echo form, and if you're echo forming, even if you have like three echo forms in play and you're playing the most like the three most powerful options you see each turn three times, it's more than enough. And most friends don't play more than six cards outside of those like Flurry of Blows, Shiv, um, whatever other things. Like the average run that's not doing things like that, or it's like spammy, all for one, whatever. Probably don't play six cards anyway. Next up is Violet Lotus. You gain an extra energy when exiting calm from two to three. I really don't like Lotus. Like, yeah, like there, maybe even here. It's like it lets you infinite with vigilance instead of needing a one cost calm. But other than that, as like an energy relic and like using it for energy outside of things like that, it seems so inconsistent and so unreliable. It's like you have to exit calm like twice in a turn for it to be like better than like saying you like need the energy relics, but you don't want the downside of the other one. It's like for it to like give you more energy than one that doesn't have too much of a downside. You have to be exiting calm twice a turn, which really doesn't happen that much outside of Infinite. You're like exiting calm and then you're like entering calm at the end. Not super likely that you're like actively stand swapping too much. And if you are, it's like probably like you can do like enter wrath, use like an empty card and then like end on calm or something like that. But it's very not likely that you're doing it more than once a turn, and it's not even necessarily likely that you're doing it once a turn. Not a fan of it at all. Lastly, there's Wristblade, a card I underestimated a lot. Not card, relic. Relic that I very much underestimated, but it's really, really good. Like, A tier good. Don't worry too much about like positions within the tiers. But Wristblade is really, really good. I mean, like 12 extra damage on a blade dance after the update. Even before that, I had some like two runs with it, I think, before the update, where I like swapped into it or something like that. And I was like, whoa, this is actually really, really powerful early. It, yeah, it's kind of just good having 12 extra damage on your zero cost cards. You want to be drafting zero cost cards anyway, like Endless Agony, Backstab. And then like Blade Dance are all extremely powerful cards. Endless Agony and Backstab being at the top of the silent tier list that I made, which I haven't uploaded yet. I did set the goal of 1,000 subs for me to upload it and make it public. I did tease a little bit in my Discord and stream, but if you want me to upload that silent tier list, here's a reminder to subscribe yourself and maybe spread the word to other people you know that like Spire and get some more of the character tier list content out for you guys, as well as at some point after that I'll be doing a Niao blessing kind of guide thing that ranks all the blessings and give you some tips as to like when to pick each different starting bonus from Niao. But that does it for the boss relic tier list. Just kind of my opinions and thoughts on the general power levels of these boss relics. I think originally I did have some of these on like the B-ish side of things, but I'm reasonably happy with the positions of all these things. And then like in I'd say like this range, like B and then the back half of A, it's like not super clear whether they go in these, but with Spire it all depends anyway, and it changes based off different situations that you're in. So it's not super clear or useful to rank things in this way. But it can be kind of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it and let me know what you think about where I have some of these relics, and let me know what your favorite relics are or something that you think I'm underrating later.